Welcome back, MTN Nets podcast. First day of free agency today. Already a big trade for the Nets. They've resigned a couple of their players. Cam Thomas, it's still up in the air, although they gave him the qualifying offer, so he is still a restricted free agent. There was, I guess, a little worry last night about Ziaire Williams and Sharpe staying, but we got news around, I think, 10 a.m. with Ziaire Williams and then around noon with Sharpe that they're both coming back, and they came back pretty team-friendly deals. So I think Sean Marks honestly did a good job with those two contracts, but we'll touch on those, and we'll touch on the big trade. The Nets getting a 2032 first-round pick and Michael Porter Jr. with 2 years left on his deal in exchange for Cam Johnson. So we'll talk about all that. Of course, leave a like, subscribe, and let's get into it. I think we'll just start with the trade because that's really the biggest news here. The thing that bothers me, I guess, is that I did want a 2026 pick. I'm sure the Nets tried to get that because they don't really have many picks next year. They have their own, and I think they have like a couple second-round picks, but to only have one first-round pick next year and to have that be our own pick where the Nets will have to execute a tank much better than they did last year because next year's class is supposed to be amazing. So I really hope next year they take it seriously, the tank. And it feels like with a trade like this, they're on the right track at least. Because the Nuggets, they do have their own first round picks in 2026, which is what I wanted, 2028, 2030, 2031, and of course 2032, which is what the Nets got. So it at least gives the Nuggets, I think, more of an extended window because when you're looking at 2032, you're looking at that as you're beyond Jokic's prime. I think Jokic is probably like 29 by this point, so you're thinking that far ahead. 7 more years, he'll be in his late 30s or something, mid-30s, late 30s. So by that point, they probably won't be competing for titles in Denver. So to get rid of that pick to improve your wing position, it probably makes sense for Denver. I saw some people say that, and maybe they're joking, maybe it's being a bit facetious, but people said that Michael Porter Jr. is better than Cam Johnson. I wouldn't agree with that, but I mean, it's close enough, I guess. I would take Cam Johnson, but the thing is with Cam Johnson, it always felt like he was a ticking time bomb because of his injuries. Of course, when he was in net, he never had a big injury with Brooklyn. He had the hamstring injury coming into 2023-24, and that definitely hampered him throughout the year. He was not the same player he was during his first year in Brooklyn right after that trade, and he had the big game or the big series against the Sixers back in the 2023 playoffs, albeit it was only 4 games after they got swept, but he was the best net in that series over Mikal Bridges, over Dinwiddie, whoever else you want to say. Like, he was the best net in that series against Philly back in the 2023 playoffs. And I know I was probably hard on Cam Johnson. I really was not a fan of his after he made that comment about fans that wanted to lose games last year were not real fans. That kind of struck a nerve. And I also was not a big fan of his complaining because he complains to the refs a lot. And it got worse as the year went on last year. I feel like at first, when he was first in net, it wasn't that big of a deal. But as time went on, especially towards the second half of last season, like, he was just out of control, always complaining to refs, and I hate when players do that. I've tweeted at Spencer Dinwiddie about it too because I hated when he did it. It's just one of those things, like, don't let the refs get in your head, and I feel like Cam Johnson was letting that happen. It was getting pretty out of control. But overall, he was a good net. He was a good soldier. He played really well last year. He had, I would say, probably his best career season last year. He had 18 points per game. That was the highest of his career. Shot the ball 39% from 3. Like, you'll take that for a guy shooting at his volume. That was really good. Had 7.2 3-point attempts per game. That was a career high. His defense was always a little underwhelming from what I expected, but I would say he's an average defender and definitely a leader for this team. He did more like shot creation stuff last year, so I think Cam Johnson definitely had his best season in the NBA, just became a better all-around player. And as for Michael Porter Jr., I'm not expecting anything as a player with the Brooklyn Nets. Like, he'll play. He just turned 27 a day ago, so he's barely 27. So the Nets get 2 years younger here. Cam Johnson is 29 years old and 119 days, and Michael Porter Jr. just turned 27 yesterday. So they get a bit younger here, but it is a bit of a downgrade in terms of the player they're getting. You look at the stats, like, okay, it's somewhat close. They both average 18 points a game last year. They both average 39% from 3 last year. MPJ is a career 40% three-point shooter. We know Sean Marks likes these guys that are wings. They're big. They can make their threes. Of course, there's a chance the Nets can flip Michael Porter Jr., but I did see a tweet from someone that has like 400,000 followers that the Nets are going to keep Michael Porter Jr., so that's my expectation right now. For his contract, he's making $38 million for this upcoming season. Then the next season in 2026-27, he's making $40 million. But after that, he's an unrestricted free agent for him being 29 years old. So the summer of 2028 or 2027, he'll be an unrestricted free agent. For a team like Brooklyn, who you know is going to be tanking next year, I think this is the right move to make because in all likelihood, we know the Nets are not going to compete next year. Michael Porter Jr. is not going to be passing the ball and making some plays that Cam Johnson was making. Like, Cam Johnson was better with the ball in his hands than Michael Porter Jr. was. Shouldn't say was. I should say better than he is. But what this gives the Nets is basically when the Nets are going to try and compete, which might be 2026-27, at that point, you're looking at a contract that, of course, now with trades, you have to kind of match salaries. It wasn't as strict back in the day, but with this new CBA, you have to basically match salaries. Cam Johnson's contract expires at the same time, but Cam Johnson's cap hit for 2026-27 is only $23 million. It was a good contract for the Nets. For Michael Porter Jr., however, for 2026-27, he's making basically $17 million more on the cap. He has a $40 million cap hit for 2026-27. So if the Nets in 2026-27 or going into that season in the summer, if they want to make a trade for a big name, which is definitely possible, I know Giannis will be 33 by that point. Like, maybe he's not the guy, but somebody, whoever's disgruntled in that summer of 2026, the Nets can make a trade with Michael Porter Jr.'s salary in that trade to trade for a potential big name star. So that's probably part of the thinking here as well, is like, yes, we're taking on more money with Michael Porter Jr., but in the event that next summer we want to make a trade for the big fish, we can send out Michael Porter Jr.'s expiring contract worth $40 million to try and match whatever player we're getting back. So I think from that perspective, it makes sense. And Michael Porter Jr. as a player, I mean, yeah, the back injuries are concerning, the shoulder injury in the playoffs, he had like that big bandage on his shoulder for half the playoff games. That's concerning, but you look at his games played over the past 2 years, the guy has only missed 6 games in the past 2 seasons. He played 81 games in 23-24 and played 77 games last year. 62 games the year before that, 9 games in 21-22, that's the big outlier, but 61 games in 2021, and then in his first real year, because he didn't play his first year, his first real rookie season at 21 years old in 2019-2020, he played in 55 games. You look at Cam Johnson, who his biggest, I guess, gripe, or my biggest gripe with him as a player, other than the complaining, is he doesn't play enough games. Like, Cam Johnson, his highest career games played in a season was 66 games in 2021-22. That was a full season. 2020-21, I think we were like playing 72 games that year because of COVID and whatever. He played 60 games that year, so that's a good amount. But after that, I mean, the guy's missed a lot of time. So you look at 2022-23. Remember when the Nets traded for him that year, he had just come back from some type of surgery. I think it was a knee surgery. So he only played in 42 total games that year. He played most of his games with the Nets, of course, that year. Then in 22-23, or no, that's the same year. In 23-24, he played 58 games. As I said, last year he came back from the hamstring. I think there might have been another small injury in there. And then this past year, 24-25, he had a back injury. He had the ankle injury, and he went on to miss a bunch of games with the ankle. So if you're Denver, like, yeah, you're getting the better player, but it is risky. Like, will Cam Johnson even be there when the playoffs start in April? I mean, I don't know. If you do get him, though, like, he'll be good. And the last time we saw him play in the playoffs, once again in that Sixers series, 4 games, he looked really good. He dunked on Embiid. He was shooting the ball well, putting up multiple 20-point games. Like, that will help a lot for Denver, who they could have used that in this past playoffs. We know that. So I think MPJ, he'll be a net for at least next year. If they really want to compete in 26-27, they may trade him for a big star once again, but the Nets may just ride out this contract and say, you know what, we'll go for it in 27-28 when he's off the books, and we'll go from there. But overall, not a bad trade to get an extra first-round pick in 2032 when Jokic might be, I don't know, retired or traded by that point. The Nuggets might be shit. Like, that might, at that point, I know it's 7 years later, but that at that point, that might look like a really good trade. So or that pick might look like a really good pick. So for right now, at least, it's a win now for Denver. But if you're looking in the future for Brooklyn, and even not that far in the future, like we're not talking 2032, we're talking like next summer when they can trade once again Michael Porter Jr. and his $40.8 million cap hit to try and get a better player. That's always possible as well. But at minimum, even that 2032 draft pick, I don't know what the Nuggets will look like by then. I'm sure Murray, I'm sure Jokic, they won't be the same, and they might have a new core by then. So whatever happens, happens, but that seems like a trade worth making if you're the Nets. I do like it. Now, of course, last night, the reports came out that the Nets did not throw out a qualifying offer to Ziaire Williams and Day'Ron Sharpe, and a lot of fans were up in arms. I was a bit confused myself, but it seemed like the Nets cooked with this here. So they got Ziaire Williams back on a 2-year deal worth $12 million, and it's a team option for the second year. So if Ziaire Williams plays like absolute garbage next year, or God forbid, like tears his Achilles or something, the Nets can get out of it next summer, right? They don't have to pay him for that second year. And I believe his qualifying offer was more. So the Nets actually made out very well with this, and I think the Ziaire Williams contract is great. I'm happy he's back. He's still just like 23 years old or something. He's very young, so it fits the timeline. Another guy who's young and of course drafted in that, Day'Ron Sharpe. I was a little more concerned with Day'Ron. It felt like for a moment he might leave, but he's back now on a very affordable contract. 2 years, $12 million as well. I don't know if there's a team option for the second one. It might be the same exact contract. I'm not sure. But either way, I know Day'Ron, he has his issues with the fouling, with the staying healthy, and the inconsistent offensive game. Doesn't have the best hands, but you're talking about per minute, one of the best rebounders we've seen. Like, I think he has the best offensive rebound percentage of all time. And to get that level of rebounder for $6 million per year on a 2-year deal, you'll take that every single time. And it's a homegrown player, so I like keeping him. And I saw this Eric Slater tweet that by declining to tender Day'Ron Sharpe and Ziaire Williams qualifying offers and then signing them to $6 million salaries each, the Nets created over $18 million in additional cap space, which of course will help them take on a Michael Porter Jr. contract. Brooklyn can still get over $40 million in space by waiving non-guaranteed players. So really, I know the popular thing to do is to criticize Sean Marks, and he was heavily criticized last Wednesday with the questionable first-round draft he had, but I would say for negotiating with his own players, Ziaire, Day'Ron, we'll see what the Cam Thomas contract ends up being. With Ziaire and Day'Ron Sharpe, he did a phenomenal job. Like, he saved money, got them on very affordable deals, team-friendly deals. Like, those are two guys I wanted back. Of course, I want Cam Thomas back as well. But given what we know now, at least the Nets, they can't lose Cam Thomas. Like, they can, of course, but they'll at least have a chance to match a Cam Thomas contract extension with another team. So they can have that. They at least have the ability to do that. I love that. So if a team out there, I don't even know who has cap space now, but if a team hypothetically signs Cam Thomas to a 3-year, $60 million deal, it might not even be close to what he gets or something. But if some team out there extends him to that deal or signs him to that deal, the Nets have the ability to match it, which I would hope they would. But honestly, based on the market, it might not even cost that much for Cam Thomas. I'm sure he'll get more than what Day'Ron and Ziaire Williams just got, but if Cam Thomas got like a 2-year, $40 million deal, would it be the most shocking thing? Probably not, because honestly, the market for him is probably not hot right now. I'm sure some teams want him, but with the restricted cap space and just people not loving Cam Thomas's game in general, although I think by this point he's underrated because I think way too many people shit on Cam Thomas, and I think he's grown as a passer, especially last year in his small amount of games we saw him play. Like, he definitely got better as a passer. His reputation's a bit flawed and outdated in my opinion, but honestly, it just helps the Nets. It will help Cam Thomas, come back on hopefully a smaller deal. So I saw what this potential rotation could look like next season. I got this from Brooklyn Nets 85 on Twitter. Starting lineup can be Jaeger at the 1, Cam Thomas at the 2, Ziaire at the 3, MPJ at the 4, Claxton at the 5. Only one rookie starting, which you don't love, but I'm sure as the season goes on, they'll implement more rookies in the starting lineup. Second unit would have Traore, Powell, Mann, Clowney, and Sharpe. And then the rest of the guys, you have Serif at point guard behind the 2 other rookies. You have Keon Johnson, Dariq Whitehead, Jalen Wilson if he makes the team, Tyrese Martin, Danny Wolf, and Drew Timme. Obviously, this team is still looking for more talent. It's not the most talented team out there, but it's going to be enjoyable to watch in a sense of we have young guys to watch and develop. The crappy part about last year was we really had no young players to watch and be excited about. The only one was Cam Thomas, and he only played like 25 games. At least now you have Ziaire, you have Traore, Sharpe, you have Powell, you have Cam Thomas hopefully plays more games. Clowney still is very young. Danny Wolf. They're on Sharpe, I guess, to a degree. So I know it's not the most exciting lineup in basketball, and it might be tough to watch this team for all 82 games. But I think compared to last year was tough. Like, they were winning meaningless games, especially early in the year. But at least now it's like you have a bunch of dudes that are under 22 that you can watch develop, hopefully, and become really good NBA players. And I'm looking at you, Ziaire. I'm looking at you, Traore. Like, we need those guys to... It's not going to be in year one, I'm sure, but it'd be nice to hit the ground running and at least show us some promise from day one. And we tend to forget about Dariq Whitehead and Noah Clowney. Like, those guys are still very young as well. Clowney is still just 20 years old, and I think Dariq Whitehead's even younger. They're probably the same age, but I think, Clowney turns 21 in about 2 weeks, July 14th, so he'll be 21 soon. But think about it, like, that's the age that Danny Wolf is right now, so... For Noah Clowney, who's been playing for the last 2 years, he's still younger than Danny Wolf. And Dariq Whitehead's 20 as well, but he turns 21 on August 1st. So yeah, he's like 2 years younger than Noah Clowney. I don't know why I forgot that. Anyway, I feel okay about where the Nets are at right now. I mean, this is not the position you thrive to be in, of course, but I think for a team, given their situation, given the amount of cap space they had, they take on Terrence Mann, they take on MPJ, they get draft picks in return. Of course, with Mann, they got the 22nd pick that turned into Drake Powell. And then for MPJ, they got a guy who's probably in 5th grade right now, but we'll find out in 2032 who they get. Or of course, they could trade that 2032 Nuggets pick to get a star in the future. That's always a possibility as well. I just didn't really want Cam Johnson here anymore. Nothing personal, of course, but 29, injury prone to a degree. Well, not to a degree. He is injury prone, so nothing big with Cam Johnson. Like, he never tore his ACL or Achilles. It wasn't anything of that. Always these little nicks and bruises and strains and sprains and all these things, and it would just add up after a while. So it got annoying, and he was a good soldier once again. He was a guy who said all the right things and led by example and all that, but he never made sense for this team. And this whole return for Kevin Durant just keeps growing and growing and growing. I saw that Brooklyn Nets 85, he also tweeted out the Kevin Durant return updated. It's Michael Porter Jr., Ziaire Demon, Nolan Traore, Danny Wolf, Ben Seraph, Noah Clowney, Ziaire Williams, 2021 Nets first returned, 2027 Knicks first, 2028 Knicks first, which is a swap, 2028 best of Suns, Philly or Dallas's pick, 2029 Knicks first, 2031 Knicks first, 2032 Denver first, and 5-ish second-round picks. So all that return for just one Kevin Durant, who was, I think, 34 at that time, is pretty insane. And, of course, Durant went to the Rockets, which I think happened before the draft. I don't know why I'm saying it now. I guess it wasn't really on my mind on draft night. But anyway, yeah, pretty interesting day around the association. I feel like a lot of people were missing Woj today. I think Shams is not really doing free agency the same way that Woj was, and some people are kind of not feeling it. I saw that Nickeil Alexander-Walker went to the Hawks on a 4-year, $62 million deal, which is really smart. Like, you put Dyson Daniels, Alexander Walker in the same defensive rotation, and you surround Trae Young with really good defenders, and even Ricochet, he could be a good defender. So I like the way they built that team there. And honestly, with the East the way it looks, I mean, the Hawks might be one of those low-key teams that end up with the 6th seed or something and give a team that's a 3 seed a good run for its money or something. It's a good year for the Hawks to go all in. And of course they got Kristaps as well. Brook Lopez, our old friend, goes to the Clippers to play with James Harden. Karis LeVert, our old friend, went to the Detroit Pistons for 2 years, $29 million. Clint Capella to the Rockets, back to the Rockets actually. I don't love that one. Clint Capella clearly declining. It's not like Houston has a playmaker offensively. I mean, I guess Fred VanVleet to a degree, but it's not like he has a James Harden or a Trae Young or something, so I don't love that move for the Rockets. Even Luke Cornett, this is why the Day'Ron Sharpe contract feels so much better. Luke Cornett, who is a good good player, but he got 4 years, $41 million from the Spurs. End up being a really good contract, but to get Day'Ron Sharpe, who is a better rebounder, and honestly might be a better player than Luke Kornet, to get him for like half the money, or even less than half, is like pretty insane. So I think it's a great value. So Day'Ron Sharpe being back for that amount is great. Kevon Looney leaves the Warriors for the first time of his career, so he had a really nice Warriors career. D'Angelo Russell, our old friend, goes to the Dallas Mavericks for 2 years. There is such a weird correlation. I just realized this. Such a weird correlation with Nets point guards going to Dallas. It's insane. The list keeps on growing. Jason Kidd, Devin Harris, Darren Williams, even Yogi Ferrell, Spencer Dinwiddie, D'Angelo, Kyrie Irving. It's like the list is just super long. I'm going to make a tweet about this. Like, it's ridiculous the amount of Nets and Dallas Mavericks point guards that just keep playing for each team. It just doesn't make sense, and I'm not sure why it keeps happening, but very weird. Bruce Brown back to the Nuggets. I like that for them, of course. They definitely missed his presence. Ty Jerome, who at one point I think was kind of rumored to go to Brooklyn. He went to Memphis for 3 years, $28 million, and I think that's about it for big moves today. Just want to make sure nothing big happened with the Nets since I last refreshed Twitter. I saw an idea thrown out there. I think it might have been the Brooklyn Nets 85 account again, but about the idea of flipping Michael Porter Jr. to the Bucks for Damian Lillard, because of course Lillard's on the shelf for the entire year. Like, I'm sure Giannis wants somebody who will impact for this upcoming season. Not saying the Bucks will do it, but if you're the Nets, like, you have to think about it. Dame basically has 2 years left, $54 million cap hit this year, so you would have to package MPJ and somebody else making around $15 million to make this work. And then for 2026-27, where he'll be 2 years removed off the Achilles, he's making $58 million. But if you're the Nets, who they want to tank next year, to get MPJ out the door for a player recovering from the Achilles, which is, I guess, to an extent what they did with DeAnthony Melton, who I think tore his ACL, never played a game for the Nets, never saw his face on the Nets bench. He was just on the roster for, half a year. Something like that. Like, you can make a trade like that, get Dame Lillard in Brooklyn, maybe sell some jerseys for people that don't know he's out for the year, and just have him sit the bench or not show up at all and just collect the losses. So that's a possibility. So we'll see what else they do. It's, of course, the first day, still early. If anything big happens, I'll come back on, talk to you guys. But yeah, so far I like what they're doing. Of course, the draft, a little questionable, of course, but I would say to this point, I feel pretty good about where the Nets are at. They're making the right moves, and I know the Michael Porter Jr. contract is not something you want to take on, but for a team like the Nets in their situation, I think it makes sense once again, so I don't mind it. The Ziaire Williams, the Day'Ron contracts, those are great. We'll see what Cam Thomas ends up being. I hope he's back, of course. I still think he will be back, but it just depends what that number is. And as time goes on, you think that number keeps getting smaller and smaller, so we'll see. But yeah, of course, leave a like, subscribe. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys next time.